Today we'll be talking about an architect scale. I know that for many of you this is a new concept. Don't worry, I promise by the end of this course you will be a master at scaling and using an architect scale. What is an architect scale? It's a triangular shaped instrument used for making or measuring scale drawings such as blueprints or floor plans. These are a few examples of what an architect scale looks like. The cool thing about the scale is that each end and each side represents a different measurement and scale size. We will go into how to use each side and when to use each side later on in this PowerPoint. Scale. One word, two different meanings. The actual instrument used for the drawing and measuring, and the unit of measurement the plans are proportionally drawn to. So 1/4 of an inch equals a foot. What does drawn to scale mean? On a scale drawing, a small measurement is used to represent a larger measurement. So for example, if it's 1/4 of an inch on a plan, it may actually represent 1 foot in real life. The scale can be read from multiple sides. First, it can be read from left to right. It can also be read from right to left. An example. So let's say that we had a measurement that was on the 1/8 scale. First, we would find where 1/8 is located on our architect scale. Once we have that, we know that from its location that we will be reading our measurements from left to right. On the other end, let's say our measurement was 1/4. We would find that on the scale, and from where it's located, we would know that we would be reading our measurements from right to left. Remember, when we write our feet and our inches, the symbols are important. So the symbol for feet is 1 dash, and the symbol for inches is 2. So 6-7 double dash would be actually read 6 feet and 7 inches. How to know the scale size. So usually when we are locating our size of our scale on a floor plan, it's going to look similar to this. What this means is the first number is the scale that we are actually using. This is the scale size that we find on our actual architect scale. The second number is actually the length that it represents. So in this case, every 1/4 inch on the scale is equal to 1 foot in real life. When we do our reading, we would start from 0 and we would read to the left. Here's another example. So we know that the scale that we are going to use is the first number. So the scale that we are using is 1/8. That's going to represent our total outcome, which is going to be 1 foot. So for every 1/8 inch on the scale, it actually represents 1 foot in real life. Now that we are on the opposite end of the scale, we know that we're going to start at 0 and then we are going to measure to the right. So what do all these numbers mean? As you can see in the top image, this is our normal scale. The bottom image is taking the scale and basically cutting it in half. We're going to focus on each side of the scale to show you where the numbers come from. So we know that 1/8 is located on the left side of the scale. So what this means is that for all of our measurements, we are going to begin on the left side. On the opposite side of the scale, we know that it is 1/4 of an inch. So this means that all of our measurements are going to start on the opposite end of the scale. For both, we usually start at the 0 mark, and then we would either go right or left depending on which measurement of the scale that we use. So the left side of the scale begins with 1/8. So if we look at 0 and we start going to our right, we start at 0 and our measurements are going to increase. So if you look here, 0 is our start point. This would be our first foot. 1, 2, 3, 4 feet. 5, 6, 7, 8 feet. The reason why this is because if we were to put all of the numbers onto the scale, everything would get confusing and it wouldn't be able to be read very easily. So for the opposite side, it is the same way. We start at 0 and we would go left. So every 1/4 of an inch, which is the distance from between 0 all the way to the other line, every 1/4 of an inch is going to equal a foot. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on. As you can see, these individual marks in between are going to be your half foot mark. So, looking at this scale, it represents 3 inches equal 1 foot. That is going to be from 0 all the way over here to 1 is going to be our first foot. Remember, the numbers in between that do not go in order are going to be from the opposite end of the scale. This example shows that this mark right here is a 4 foot. This is from the opposite end of the scale, which is 1 1/2 inch equals a foot. Now it is important that we know how to read not only the feet, but to get accurate readings for our inches as well. So to find inches, each scale is set up with all these little dash marks. Each one has little dash marks. This is on our 3-inch scale. Down here, this is our 3/4 scale. As you can see, each one still has all the little dash marks. Each one of these little dash marks is going to represent a portion of an inch. This scale is a larger scale, so we have more dash marks because we have more room to incorporate them. Every scale has 3 longer dash lines. These 3 longer dash lines are going to be your individual inches of 3, 6, and 9. We know that our 0 mark is going to be 0 inches, and that our last mark is going to be 12 inches or 1 foot. Because we all know that 12 inches equals 1 foot. The second largest dash is going to represent those inches in between. So 1 inch, 2 inch, 4, 5, 7, 8, 10, and 11. We could even break it down even further and go into 1/2 inches and 1/4 inches. Here's another example on the 1/4 scale. If we look, starting at 0, here's our 1 foot, 2 foot, 3 foot. These larger numbers, such as 84 and 88, represent the increasing numbers from the opposite end of our scale, which is going to be our 1/8 inch. Now, we got to remember that once we find our feet, we want to find our inches. So, like I was talking about earlier, the 3 longer dash lines on the scale represent those larger increments of inches, are 3, 6, and 9. Beginning with 0 or 0 inches, and at the end is 12 inches or a foot. Each individual dash on our 1/4 scale, it now equals 1 whole inch. So the ones in between are going to be 1 inch and 2 inch. 3 inch, our larger one. 4, 5, 6, our larger line. 7, 8, 9, our larger line. 10, 11, and then finally ending with 12 inches or 1 foot. So the first step of determining what scale we're going to use is to determine what size scale our drawing is actually in. So a lot of your blueprints or your floor plans are going to have an instruction or an information box. In these boxes, it's going to tell you all the information in regards to your blueprint or your floor plan. This one here shows that our scale is 1/4 inch equals 1 foot. So now that we know what size scale we are using, we can find that on our actual scale. So we're going to locate that number on our architect scale. Second, to read our number in which we are going to measure to find our feet in inches, we need to place our scale starting at 0 on the line of the line that we want to be measured. Okay, step 4. You're going to use your scale to either make your own prints or to find out how long specific measurements are. So, first you want to determine the length of the object that needs to be drawn, or take the measurement of the object itself. For example, if we were using a 1/4 inch equals a 1 foot scale, and our wall is 20 feet in length, it would become 20 over 4, or on our floor plan, 5 inches would equal 20 feet. Okay, so here's an example. We want to find the length of this work table. So to find the length, first we want to take our architect scale, find 1/4 of an inch, and place the 0 at the beginning point of the line or the item in which we want to measure. So as you can see, we took the 0 mark and we started it at the beginning of our line. Now we want to locate where our line actually ends and where it falls on our architect scale. So looking from left to right, because that's the way that we would read for 1/4, we know and that we could see that it ends at the 6 mark. So we know that each 1/4 of an inch equals a foot. So we know that this is 6 units long, therefore it is going to be 6 feet. Okay, so now we want to measure the height of our table. This is going to be a little bit more difficult because, as you can see, looking at the scale, it is not a perfect number. This is going to help you when you have those in-betweens. We're going to see how to actually locate inches. So, just like before, we take our scale and we start our line at the 0 mark. Now, we know that for a fact that our table is at least 2 feet tall. We have 1 foot, 2 foot, it's not quite at 3 foot. So we know that it's going to fall somewhere in between. So in order to be more precise, what we need to do is we need to use our inches. So what we do is we slide down our scale to the nearest foot. So as before, we've seen that our nearest foot here is going to be 2 feet. So we slide that down to the bottom. We know that for a fact that it's going to be at least 2 feet plus a few inches. So now we're able to calculate how many inches are going to take us to the very tip top of our table. So looking at our scale, if we start at 0 and we go all the way to the top, we know that it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 inches. Another way to locate this is, as we know, our 3 longest lines are going to represent 3, 6, and 9 inches. We can see right here that it stops at 9 inches. So the height of our table is going to be 2 feet plus 9 inches, or 2 feet and 9 inches, or, well, now we've come to the end of our PowerPoint. Hopefully this has helped you know what an architect scale is, how to read an architect scale, and how to use it in real life. If you have any questions, please let me know, and feel free to watch this PowerPoint presentation over again.